Hello, darling dolls. Welcome to YEAHR. I want to talk about it. I was just perusing from bed the National Songwriters Association. I don't know what the I stands for. NSAI. And to say I'm incensed would maybe be an understatement, but here we are. Need a fortifying sip of tea before I continue to be like, I need to get a better video set up, but it's just what we're just these are just sketches, you know? These are just sketches to get the idea out, right? There it is. Where to start? With the stretch, I guess. Oh, Liliana, have y'all done moved your little bods around? Move those bones? Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. The NSAI website. Membership, I think the monthly membership is $17.50, and then there's a $25 setup fee for new accounts. And then what was the yearly? I think the yearly was $250 something. My math might not math, but I think that's kind of irrelevant at this point. All the offerings that I looked at, stuff the website isn't super functionally on the phone. I had to figure out, I had to scroll up or down. I don't know. It was not user friendly. The UI experience was bad. Just really clunky. They had a email sign up where for a week they give you a preview of all of their offerings and I think maybe some prompts for songwriting. And so the songwriting, they host events, you get discounted tickets if you're a member, you can send in pitches, they have a certain allotment, I think per month, per year that you can do. Potentially they team you up with mentors, there's access to the writing rooms, and flashback to when I did my first open mic ever at Drifters. I think that was I want to say maybe in December. And this girl came and sat next to me, and she's the one who kind of got my little wheels spinning about, wait, this could be a really thing I do. And of course, because ADHD, etc., it's many months later, and I'm like, oh yeah, what about that songwriting thing though? As all my journals, notebooks, which I'm a kind of a mix. I think when I was younger, I used to be able to keep it a little more separate of the journaled thoughts versus the songs, poems. But now it's very much I got my new notebook, found it on the street. And I had been thinking, I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to get a new notebook. But, your girl is at the point in life when I'm going to scrap pieces of paper together to bind up a notebook because things are like that, and also I've just got to be as resourceful as possible. $1 turns out is kind of crucially important to my life at this point. Mere doll hairs. And so, but the universe gives you what you need. all that to say, it all has to live in one for the most part. Although I did have this honker, but this is not something you can like roll around with. So this is my like couch. I previously had all these tabs that Moon Kitty has just completely shredded. So I have to rethink my tablature. But it's all divided into different, like I have a genealogy section. And so again, I mean, I guess they do all still live in one. Yeah, okay. I digress. So met this girl, I think, what was her name? Michelle. And like immediately like had a nice rapport and talked about songwriting and like her kind of like coming at what she's doing, what she gets into. And she was a member. She is a member, I assume, and had started getting all these songwriting gigs. And I think maybe right after we met, her life must just have gotten real different. Or, you know, I don't know. You know, I have to continue to remind myself, like, as much as I forget shit, I'm like, I wish I could use that kind of like goldfish brain for meeting people in the wild and having these like one-off interactions. And like, you know, I've always been this girl of I try and make something out of nothing. And like for better or for worse, you know, that goes in a lot of different ways. And in the human connection department, a little goldfish memory would really serve me well. Of just like being like, that was for the nugget of what it was and not for a further friendship or continued interaction, you know? But I also am like, but connections are important to me and I want to give them a fair shake. And so I think then for my brain, I have to be like, I did my due diligence and I'm going to try and not take it personally and just keep it moving. But I might have to do the due diligence first. Okay, going back. So the NSAI, whatever, the Songwriters Association, and I remember having asked her at the time because I think she had just come from an event. And I will say that all the open mics I've been to tend to be pretty male, white male heavy, dominant, if I can say that. And so much so that Susie at the 5 spot, she runs the open mic. I think it's on Wednesdays. And yeah, she's like, it's just dudes. And she's like, I think it's because girls are too clever and they do one open mic and then they're like, oh, I'm just going to book a show. And they figure out how to book a show for themselves. And so I like that insight, that Susie insight. And I hope that is what happens. And that's why they're all male dominated. But I know that's probably not in fact the only case and not the majority of the case. The majority of the case is that that like everything in our society, but especially in music, it is white, cis, het, male dominated by design, you know? And you know how much that exasperates me in just like daily life. Like I'm not trying to be in a room full of that energy. Ooh, no, I don't even remember at the time when she said it and I was like, oh, sounds terrible. And all just with this, like, I'm just gonna, like, I want to make it, you know? And like that there's not really an artistry to it. And that's not to say that there are not some among them that are artists. Of course not. I don't, you know, I'm not a total monster. But like, again, I don't really want any part of that artistry or that energy. because like PS, we've already had that for all of time. And I'm like, I'm good. I want that space filled with queer, indigenous, BIPOC folk. And I want the fucking weirdos who have been like, I have exhausted, like, I want this, I want all those people on the spectrum. I want that as the Songwriters Association. I want that as the record label and management team and like creation, like production staff, you know? Like, I am not interested in paying money to have some old white men be like, this is a go, this is viable, this is commercial, whatever. I'm not interested in that. Much like I am not interested in continuing to do this whole like song and dance. Meanwhile, let's talk about song and dance. And I promise that this all links together because it does. And I think it might culminate in me. Oh, I just have to make it myself. Cool. But until we get to that juncture, and I lost the thread. Okay. So I got fired through no fault of my own and was like, well, I guess I'll try to apply for unemployment. And then I ended up with the 5-spot thing, and then also having like, for this time being, some regular karaoke. And so, you know, basically that makes the unemployment like, you know, you're going to go through all these hoops for Bubkiss. And I'm like, well, I'm already doing that. So I might as well just do it once for Bubkiss instead of double Bubkiss, right? And I was talking to my sister, and she has a kiddo, and she's like been trying to get, you know, like she's a full-time mom and unemployed. And because how would she, you know, how would she work? There's no one to watch the kid. And like the lengths that she has to go through again for like doesn't equate to the effort and the actual like expenses that it takes, i.e. like going on job searches where they're like, ooh, we'll give you $10 a day to go on a job search. But it's like gas prices right now, that time of like, again, what's she gonna do with the kiddo for $10 a day, as if that's like manna from heaven. Get out of here. Get out of here with that bullshit. So like going the long way around to still end up with, you know, maybe actually less in your physical tank than when you started, because that is like, again, purposefully designed to be super ineffective and convoluted and not actually get people the help they fucking need when they fucking need it. Ew. This system doesn't work for anyone except for the people who are profiting at the top. I know I don't need to tell you all this, but it does help to get it out of my body, because other than it just swirls up inside of me and then I'm like filled with rage constantly. I mean, if it's going to be like that anyway, I might as well be able to like tap the pressure a little bit, right? In case you're interested, I'm having a little green tea and honey. And it's, of course, lukewarm at best, because you either get it too hot to handle or lukewarm. Too hot to handle just reminded me of Nora from Queens. Does anyone watch that? Constantly in my brain space, much like Broad City, and it's like of that ilk, you know? Did I use that right? Anyhow. So, needless to say, I dream of a better world for myself and everyone else in it, in so many ways. but very specifically in the genre of music and songwriting. And then to add insult to injury, I, was digging around on their not user-friendly website, and they have like a songwriter series coming up where they're like, we pair you with these like people that we deem worthy of being, of having these accolades. Oh, they've written for, and then they name drop a whole list. And meanwhile, this list name dropped Nancy Griffith, who I'm like, wait, what? But then it was like a proxy. They just like were name dropping her. And I'm like, get out of here. They didn't even write with them. It was like that was featured with artists like, and then name dropped. But it was like, it's not like this guy, what was it? The Arlo Guthrie trio, and the only reason I clicked on it is because they play at 5 Spot, and they have this whole thing about like, they want to start at a certain time that like jams up the schedule that is set for all the other days of the week. And because, I don't know, white men get whatever they want, and PS, it is not bringing in the droves of people as the venue was assured it would for, having to jostle their whole lineup and like still not make money. Don't even get me started. And insultist to insultist injury on his little blurb that is nothing but like padding if you're reading between any fucking lines, and also just like another, like I think of Janine Garofalo's character in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, and when they're at the reunion, the actual reunion, and Chrissy is giving like the best dress or not best dress, but like most successful awards, and Janine Garofalo is like dribbling her drink down her dress, like blah, 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 like brilliant, so fucking brilliant. And that's what I felt like reading this write up on this like featured artist that you get to hear talk for an amount of time, and so it's like, oh, and the trio has a weekly gig at the Underdog. Doesn't even say the 5 Spot, which like, and I know for facts it does not bring in the moolah. Oh! So, your girl immediately was like, I just saw this article and he didn't even mention the bar. Rude. Because that is fucking rude. That's fucking rude. And like, the only reason that musicians are here and able to showcase their work at all is because these venues. And if you are not supporting the venue that supports your endeavor, like that is an unequal energy exchange, and it is no longer mutually beneficial, and you're like, it's not acceptable, like I think about the Bowery, and it's a cool venue, and like the open mics, to get anyone to buy anything. And again, with the open mic on Wednesday at the 5 Spot, maybe 20% of those attendees bought drinks. Maybe. And they also don't mind wasting your time and making you get them water, and then not, No dollar comes your way for the effort. Like, it's a number of things, and disappointing is one of them. It's just like, this is not sustainable for anyone. And like, so what happens when that circle jerk open mic goes away for those people? Guess what? Like, they're gonna find another one. And so now I'm like, all right, I need to figure out how to take over this fucking Wednesday night. And it would be right that I did it, because Wednesday night was when Glass happened, you know? We circle right back around. And then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, well, what would that look like for me? And I'm like, well, it would be like having a space for actual queer, BIPOC, spectrum writers, specifically for them to come and know that they're going to be around peers for sure, that they're going to be in a safe space that has thought about, the different invisible accommodations that, like, can be thought about, can be just at least there's a cognizance around it, right? Of like, there's an awareness, and being able to delineate, like, all right, here's my party, here's the parking situation, here's like the COVID conscious, the immune compromised, like, please feel free to wear a mask in here if that feels good for you. Absolutely. Like, there's no judgment. You are supported. And like, also, like, here we have all this outside space. And they have the layout of the 5 spot is great. I really like it. And they have a disco ball, and really, a girl needs so little. So if the dance floor is not in the line of through traffic, like, we are already off to an infinitely better start than most spaces. So, and I did see they even have like a dance party, like how you set the room up for a dance party. I saw that that's a sheet that is already in existence and like laminated, and I'm like, yep, okay. I can try and read these signs. I can try and do it. I figure it out. I get there eventually. And then, having board games and crafts and like trash crafts. And because I think about, the bar waste and like these 6-pack rings that, like, we've been trained to like just cut into like fringe ribbons. And I'm like, why isn't that fringe? Like, we could use that for costuming. Like, talk about Patagonia, Patagonia. And meanwhile, that fucking lawsuit with Patagonia, ugh, gross. Capitalist, white men, patriarchy is constant and so pervasive. And I mean, and the things they try and tamp out, again, where it's like, this is very transparent what you are trying to suppress. Like, when does it end? When do we stop this? When do we stop this? When do we stop doing this? And so, and then have the DJ and have like total requests so you could make sure. And then I was thinking, oh, what if, it was like you could have a playlist, and on, like, I use Tidal, and I think that when I share a playlist, like, it makes it so if you click the link, I think it goes to like whatever service you use. So again, like, important to be accessible, and maybe there's like also a YouTube playlist of it. I don't know. That gets created so that people know like what the soundscape is gonna roughly be like, and then be like, there, leave room for changes and like requests and like things at the day of, but pretty reliably you'll be able to hear, this lineup of music, so that like if you want to get yourself acquainted with it ahead of time and neurodivergently prepare in any way, i.e., maybe you want to try and dance and like move your body to it and see how it feels, but in the privacy of your own home and space. And then maybe that might give you some more comfort than in public to dance. And so trying to create these little moments for people where they get to learn how to trust themselves, like the stuff that we never got taught. And, you know, and then also having a thing about like, please know that that the service staff, that your bartender, that your KJ host relies on tips for livelihood. And like by coming into this event, you are acknowledging that you understand this and will comply with that. And knowing that, like, I don't know. And I feel like I want some room for like sliding scale hardship stuff. And I struggle because like in the general sense, I'm like, if you cannot tip somebody, if you cannot afford to tip somebody for the beer you just got, then you cannot afford to go out, you know? And I think in those circumstances, I feel pretty cut and dry about it because it's not so specific and niche as like what this party would be. And I think what I would have built into this party is having like a mutual aid pool of having something where it's like, hey, like if you want to come to this party, pop into this like signal thread and you know, and then see if anyone's like, hey, I'm happy to buy somebody a drink tonight if they want to come out, or like I'm new in town and I'd love to buy somebody a drink if they want to meet me at this party. That is specifically a safe space, you know, where it's like you kind of have a mutual aid pool, or maybe like a business is like, hey, I want to kick in, you know, like a sponsor of something of like the THC drinks, or I don't know, something where it's like they want to kick in, hey, we're going to send $50. That is a pool for like those who can't afford to tip and like purchase a beverage, and you just tell them you're on this account and like la-di-da. Something like that where it's like it still makes it accessible for everyone regardless if you have access to funds, almost like a bar pantry kind of, you know, like I had talked in a few episodes ago about how the Joy Aladakun show was a benefit for the East Nashville Community Pantry, and you know, and kind of having that, and then also having a community pantry set up of like, hey, you know, like bring any canned goods or like dry goods or, you know, whatever. I mean, maybe even because it's like a day of thing of like, if you have extra produce or something that's going to go bad and you are only one person, and or like, you know, I don't know, some kind of meal share, or maybe even in this like chat that surrounds the party is like, hey, I made extra pasta, or I made an extra dinner. Is there anybody that's going to this party tonight that wants it? And I'll bring it in a Tupperware or whatever. And having there be like some community building on its own, where it's like the party is just creating the space for it to happen, you know, i.e., let's say the signal chat, and the community is doing what the community will innately do, right? And like no one's policing each other, you know. There's of course parameters, and you know how behavior needs to be in order to make that a sustainable, safe community for everyone, but all really doable. So yeah, looks like some things are percolating and gestating, and maybe maybe developing into the thing, to the thing. I will say I have had some little red flags come up, but I'm also like, okay, I think they are, you know, they're ruddering me. You know, they're like, okay, this is it's just having a fuller, more realistic perspective of what is actually like what the back end looks like. Pretty, you know, and again, where I'm like, how do I get this information right off the bat? But I sure do. And all these situations. So I'm gonna try and delineate this for you without saying the names. But I'm like, who am I protecting? These people, you know, like what? Fire me. Um so the other night I was working Thursday. I was working and it had come up something about because the drama of the bartender I'm lightly replacing and like her qualms that weren't totally unfounded and but you know just the way that they were handled maybe was, but also maybe she was at her break point, who knows. I think there was a lot at play in terms of how that ended up transpiring. But to distill this into like the little nugs of information that again I think that the nugs that have been coming through and showing up and why they have been showing up is to give me a fuller picture of like what I potentially might be dealing with should I try to embark on doing a party, or you know, and like kind of tempering what I can expect for the work and the monetary value of the work. So the guy comes in Thursday and the person I'm working with is like, oh, that's like one of the owners or something. And Coral had said something to me, who's one of the owners, had said something to me about there was this kind of issue where these men, these white, I can only assume het men, cis het men, were being abusive to staff, were being misogynistic to staff, and that the bartender no longer there didn't want to serve them, and then they bring it back to the owner of the building, and I guess by some cockamamie backdoor kind of situation also an owner in the business, but not an actual like a monetary owner, not a functional owner, you know. And that he would come and be like, why aren't these guys getting served? And like, I'm just gonna sell the building, I guess, because like what, you know. And so makes this like idle threat, and of course like to women. And so I have this information, and then Thursday rolls around and the person I was working with was like, oh, the guy at the end of the bar is like one of the owners. And I was like, oh, this must be this guy who made this like threat to like sell the business. If and meanwhile, this is these people's livelihoods, you know, they have kiddos, they are there, they are doing all the work, they are absolutely, see, from what I can see, really doing, I mean, I know they're doing all like the work that needs to get done to run a bar, you know. And that's not small work, and that's like fairly constant, you know. And they're very responsive and la da da. So I walk over and I kind, yeah. So I walk over, hey, what can I get you? And he's like, I'm your boss. And he says my name and he says it wrong. And I'm like, I'm Brianna. You know, I correct him. And I mean, just to like that be the first thing he says to me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the guy, isn't it? Immediately knew. And, and I can't help what my face does, but I am sure he's enough of a misogynist that it wouldn't matter anyway. Like a woman's face is always in resting bitch face if she's not like pandering to him, you know? So, I just, I'm a bartender. I knew exactly who this was. I know that he is absolutely like, I mean, sure, maybe he can fire me, I guess, but like, he is of no consequence to me other than knowing that he is a man baby who makes idle threats on people's livelihoods because he has some idea about something. And then come to find out that the former bartender had been serving these misogynist dudes, and they still lied and complained to this asshole. So it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Just again, the pervasiveness of male caucasity is, it feels like at an all-time high, but I think this is just it's the constant operating standard. It's just now it's so completely unseeable, like unforgivable at this point, and just the tolerance is, I have no tolerance for it. And again, like if I am to get fired for having any kind of boundaries or self-respect, like so fucking be it, so fucking be it. I mean, that already happened at Cobra. So, and again, because I didn't like pander to this man baby, I got fucking fired, like get out of here. Get out of here. Why are we doing this? I'm not doing it anymore. So yeah, I think I'm about out of the piss and vinegar here. And yeah, I guess I'll be back and we'll be figuring out what this party might look like and how to thread this thing all together. All right, dwellings, don't let nobody shame you. Please don't shame yourself. You're doing great, sweetheart. We're in this together. Let's dream it so different for ourselves.